Thanks for joining us today. We're going to follow along with the children's department as we do almost every Sunday. Today they are learning about Obadiah, and so we're going to be learning about Obadiah as well. Obadiah is the shortest book in the Old Testament. It's only 21 verses long. So when you get home and you talk to your friends, and if they ask about church, you can say, man, it was long and boring. We read the whole book of Obadiah in church today, and so on and so forth, all 21 verses. Actually, I think we're going to leave 3 verses on the table, so almost the whole book. Obadiah means servant of Yahweh, or it may also mean one who worships Yahweh. And so that's a great title, a great name. I am devoted to God, basically, if you think about it. That's what that means. And there's a general consensus that Obadiah was writing shortly before the destruction of Jerusalem. He was more than likely a contemporary of Jeremiah. And God sent Obadiah a message in a vision, but what was unique was that Obadiah's message, it's not for God's people. It's not for the Jews. It's not for Israel or for Judah, but it's for Edom, the Edomites. Now, the Edomites were related to the people who lived in Jerusalem and in Judah. And both of these groups, the Jews and the Edomites, they were descendants of Isaac's twin sons, Esau and Jacob. The Edomites were the offspring of Esau, while God's people in Jerusalem and in Judah, they were descended from Jacob. And the people of Edom, they did not follow Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They worshiped false gods. They lived in the mountains. They were rugged mountain kind of people. And so, as if you remember Esau, he was a rugged outdoorsman. And so they lived in mountainous terrain, and they had their own strength and their own survival instincts to kind of protect them. And because of their rugged self-sufficiency, they were very proud, and they thought they were invincible. It'd be kind of like, I guess, today, going somewhere in Kentucky or Tennessee or something, mountain folk, and they would say, bring on all the stuff, you folks want to do. We're not scared of that. We're self-sufficient, right? We're going to hole up in our bunker with our year's worth of food and our armaments, And so that's kind of this mentality. We're a little bit invincible. We're rugged and tough and independent. We live in this natural-made fortress of the mountains and the hills and the peaks and the cliffs. God, however, wanted the Edomites to know, you may think you're invincible, but guess what? Judgment is coming. I'm going to judge you. And that's kind of the historical background. So I want to move to Obadiah's message. Now we know a little bit about the Edomites, and we know who God is speaking to. Let me ask you this as we begin this morning. Have you ever had a wake-up call? I'm not talking about your alarm clock going off. Sometimes that literally is a wake-up call. But maybe something's happened in your life that is like a call to action. Maybe I know for some people, they've had a heart attack. You get a little older and you find yourself, you think you're pretty healthy, and there you are in your 40s or your 50s or something, and all of a sudden you're having chest pains and so on and so forth. For some people, that's a wake-up call, right? I need to lose, a bunch of weight, and I need to start an exercise program. Or maybe you've had some other narrow escape from danger or a close call with catastrophe. Wow, my friend's been telling me for a long time I really should get that fixed, and I really should have gotten that fixed, right? Now I need to do something. Wake-up calls. Well, it seems to me that Obadiah's message, this message of judgment, is a wake-up call not only to the Edomites, but it's really a wake-up call for everyone. It's God saying, wake up, people, pay attention. So verse 15 especially says, the day of the Lord is near for all nations. That ought to wake us up a little bit, huh? The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. And this pronouncement of the destruction of the Edomites, it should be a wake-up call for everybody. It ought to wake us up a little bit when we read these 21 verses. We had a saying back in the day when I was growing up. I had 3 brothers, and we would say this sometimes as we're disagreeing with one another. It's kind of threatening. If you know what's good for you, right? You ever find yourself saying that, and then you fill in the blank, If you know what's good for you, you better knock that off. If you know what's good for you, you better stop, or I'm going to tell Mom. If you know what's good for you, you better give that back to me. And of course, if you know what's good for you, you better do it, because, I'm going to find something and pound you. That's what that means in brother speak, Now, let's keep this in mind, because if you know what's good for you, all of us, we better listen to what God has to say to Obadiah. If you know what's good for you, you better listen up, because God is trying to get our attention. God is trying to warn us before, He gets the big stick and gives us a good whomp upside the head. So, the message today, 4 warnings for the wise, right? There are 4 different warnings in the text today, and if you know what's good for you, you better listen up. So, warning number 1, pride is deceptive. Verses 3 through 6, the pride of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rocks and make your home on the heights, you who say to yourself, who can bring me down to the ground? Though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord. If thieves came to you, if robbers in the night, oh, what a disaster awaits you. Would they not steal only as much as they wanted? If grape pickers came to you, would they not leave a few grapes? But how Esau will be ransacked, his hidden treasures pillaged. In other words, God is saying, my destruction is going to be complete. I'm not going to leave anything. I'm going to deal with you harshly. Now, the Edomites' homeland, it was in a plateau kind of southeast of the Dead Sea, and their land had these steep cliffs and narrow gorges and high rocky peaks. And militarily, these features made them almost impregnable. And they had this confidence. No one can get to us. No one can overtake us. Nobody can harm us. And so metaphorically, God said, you soar like the eagle and you make your nest among the stars. In the pride of the human heart, we are easily deceived sometimes in believing in the unmatched power of our own greatness. You don't have to work at it very much to find somebody that will tell you how amazing you are. And if we're not careful, we begin to believe our own publicity. That's right, I am pretty awesome. Psalm chapter 10, verses 2 through 4. In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak, who are caught in the schemes he devises. He boasts about the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked man does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. How easy it is. Pride is so dangerous, isn't it? Because if we're not careful, we can believe our own publicity. We can begin to convince ourselves how incredibly awesome we are. It was the serpent's cunning appeal to Adam and Eve, to their prideful nature. That's what led them into sin. If we go back to Genesis chapter 3 and we read about the fall, it says the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals that the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. But the snake said, you will not certainly die. He's lying, by the way. He said to the woman, because God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. There's that appeal to pride, right? God doesn't want you to eat the fruit because you're going to be awesome. If you eat it, you'll be just like God. Of course, he was lying. They ate the fruit, and guess what? They were never even close to being like God. All they got out of that deal was death. Go ahead and eat the fruit. Well, they did, and everything fell apart. Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And so the Edomites, they're full of themselves. They felt invincible in their rocky fortress. But pride is deceptive. It's deceptive. In the introduction to the book of Obadiah, it's interesting, the Harper Study Bible, it has a little note on the Edomites. This is what it says. The Edomites were descendants of Esau and had always been enemies of the sons of Jacob. The Herods of Jesus' day came from Edomite stock. But this last sentence is the zinger. Following the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, the Edomites were heard of no more. They were never heard of again. You're full of yourselves. We're awesome. We're incredible. Nobody can touch us. And yet in reality, it was just a matter of a few hundred years, and they completely disappeared. Nobody's ever heard from the Edomites again. They've been erased from history. Pride is deceptive. You may think you're all that in a bag of chips, and guess what? In a few years, people may forget that you were even here at all. So, pride is deceptive. If you know what's good for you, you better stay humble. All right? Warning number 2, popularity is temporary. So in verses 7 through 10, all your allies will force you to the border. Your friends will deceive and overpower you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap for you. And then it says, but you will not detect it. In that day, declares the Lord, will I not destroy the wise men of Edom, those of understanding in the mountains of Esau? Your warriors, Teman, will be terrified, and everyone in Esau's mountains will be cut down in the slaughter. Because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame. You will be destroyed forever. Everybody wants to be popular today. Everybody wants to have friends, right? And so it's kind of a measurement, I guess, of a status symbol almost. How well are you doing in life? How many Facebook friends do you have? Oh, I've got 3,000. Wow, you're rocking it, right? I've got all these friends. And we live in an age where popularity, it used to be back in the day, popularity, if you were like a mega popular superstar, at least nationally, you had to be, a great athlete or a movie star or somebody really famous to be famous. It's not that way anymore, All you need is a YouTube account and a smartphone, and all of a sudden we have all of these media celebrities, It's a different era today. We have people who are overnight celebrities. They make so much money being social influencers. That's an interesting term in and of itself, social influencers. My grandkids sit in front of the television or the computer. They'll stay there if we would let them. We don't, because we're grandparents, So we don't let them. No, you're going to get up and do some work now. You've been sitting there long enough. If we would let them, they would sit there all day watching all kinds of mindless garbage as adults behave like children. It's amazing. We're going to throw slime at each other. We're going to do all kinds of, foolish, ridiculous things. And guess what? We make more money than you ever dream of making because we have 25,000 subscribers, right? Popularity. Everybody wants to be popular, and it's easy to grasp. But guess what? Even though popular people are all around us today, at the end of the day, it is of no account. You can't depend on popularity. I think about that. It's temporary. It doesn't last. And it's interesting because Obadiah said all of your allies, these people you thought were on your side, they're going to force you to the border. Your friends will deceive and overpower you. Those who eat your bread, those people that you sat and had dinner with, guess what? They are going to set a trap for you. Popularity doesn't mean anything. Everybody wants to be your friend as long as it seems like everybody likes you. But how quickly all of that changes. I'm reminded of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15. Probably most of us are familiar with that story. And in talking about the prodigal, Jesus said that this young man, first of all, he asks his father to give him his inheritance. I don't want to stick around and wait for you to die. Just give me all the money now. And incredibly, his dad did that. And it says in verse 13 that he set off for a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. However much money it was a good amount of money today. Maybe we could say it was a few $100,000 or something. But anyway, he blows his money. And I'm sure he was immensely popular for a while, right? It's okay. Come on, drinks are on me. Let's party up, or come on, let's go out for dinner. He's whining and dining and doing all these things. Everybody loves this guy. He's the life of the party until he ran out of money. And it says, after he had spent everything, in verse 14, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. And so he went and he hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating. And I love this last little phrase, but no one gave him anything. In other words, he used to be the popular playboy with all the money and all the luxuries and everything else. Now he's a lonely pig farmer's helper, right? What happened to all your friends? Popularity at the end of the day really doesn't mean anything. Popularity for popularity's sake, it's temporary. I think back, I've been out of high school now, for a lot of years, way more than I want to remember. And I think back, what's really, really interesting, all the popular people that I went to high school with, it doesn't make any difference at all. It doesn't make any difference at all. Some of the people that were the most popular, they died years ago. They had alcohol problems or various other things. It's irrelevant today, isn't it? I think about Jesus. For a while, Jesus was pretty popular. I think about Palm Sunday, right? Palm Sunday, he's riding in to Jerusalem, and they're hailing him as king. Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Woo-hoo, it's Messiah. But guess what? That's Palm Sunday. On Good Friday, just a few days later, most of those same people are now yelling, crucify him. Popularity is not worth anything for its own sake. So, if you know what's good for you, you'd better forget about striving to be popular. Make it your priority to please God, by the way, right? What's the alternative to being popular? Pleasing God. He is the one who will be with you forever. He is the one who will go the extra mile and who has gone the extra mile for you. If you know what's good for you, be humble in the sight of God. Don't worry about popularity. It's not at all what it's cracked up to be. Warning number 3, power should be used to help others, not hurt them. So notice what happens next, verse 11 through 15. On the day you stood aloof, in other words, you stayed at a distance, it says, while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, on that day you were like one of them. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune, nor rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor boast so much in the day of their trouble. You should not march through the gates of my people in the day of their disaster, nor gloat over them in their calamity in the day of their disaster, nor seize their wealth in the day of their disaster. You should not wait at the crossroads to cut down their fugitives, nor hand over their survivors in the day of their trouble. The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. power should be used to help other people, not harm them. But we're living in a day and age where if you have power, everybody's excited about it, because we use that then to put other people down. We live in a culture where so many people are being bullied and pushed around. The strong find great pleasure in taking advantage of the weak. But this could not be more wrong in the sight of God. And it's an abomination, I believe, to God. It's reality. It's always been this way. Proverbs 22 verse 7 says, the rich rule over the poor. The borrower is the slave to the lender. And the Edomites, they used their position of security and prosperity. They used that to capitalize on Judah's misfortune. Now tough times have come to Judah. Jerusalem even is being destroyed and ransacked. And the Edomites, they're going in and looting from their own relatives. They're rejoicing in their misfortune. Oh, your tragedy is our triumph. Now we're going to go in and steal all the stuff, carry out everything that we can get in our arms, everything that we can carry. That's kind of the modern view of power, isn't it? If I've got power, I'm going to run you over if I can. But here's the thing. In God's economy, power, the instrument of power is a servant's towel. It is not a gavel or a hammer or a sword. Think about that. We are called to be servants. Power in the kingdom of God is something that we use to serve one another, to be an instrument of God's grace. Take a look at Jesus' use of power. Well, how did the Lord use power? Notice John chapter 13. And it says in verse 1, it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And it says the evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father, notice this in verse 3, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. That's quite a verse, isn't it? He knew that everything's under my power. I have all power. And then it says, and he knew that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing. He wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Today, almost if you said, I know all power has been given to me, most people today would say, you're going to wash my feet then, right? I know I have all power, so I'm going to boss you around. No, Jesus, knowing he had all power, washes their feet. Verse 12 and following, when he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes. He returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Power should never be used to hurt others. That's not why we have power. It should be used as a tool to help others. It should be used as a means to more effectively serve others. So if you know what's good for you, you should aspire to wash feet in the name of Jesus instead of forcing others under your feet to be your servants. Finally, number 4, plans of men are always subservient to the purpose of God. Let me say that again. Plans of men are always subservient to the purpose of God. So, verse 16 through 21. Just as you drank on my holy hill, so all the nations will drink continually. They will drink and be as if they had never been. But on Mount Zion will be deliverance, It will be holy, and Jacob will possess his inheritance. Jacob will be a fire, and Joseph a flame. Esau will be stubble, and they will set him on fire and destroy him. There will be no survivors from Esau. The Lord has spoken. Remember, by 70 AD, they disappear. We never have heard from them again. People from the Negev will occupy the mountains of Esau, and people from the foothills will possess the land of the Philistines, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to read all of that, but you can read about the progress and how God works and moves. The Edomites, they were proud and they were bold. We're rough and tough. We live in this craggy fortress. We're self-sufficient. We can defeat anyone. And they thought that they could push Judah around without consequence. But they did not take the greater purpose of God into consideration. They weren't thinking about God's authority. And God said a future day was coming when Judah would be delivered and when Judah would thrive, but Edom would disappear completely. And here's the truth. We only think we're in control, right? We only think we're in control. Sometimes we're delusional. When I was growing up, we used to say, well, it's a free country. You know, that's another one of those things from my childhood. I don't know if people say that so much, but back in the day, we did, you know. You need to stop doing it. It's a free country. I'll do what I want. I'm in control. I'm large and in charge. Guess what? You're not in control. You're not large and in charge. In fact, all of us, we're infinitesimally small. Psalm 42, 1 and 2 says, the earth is the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas, and he established it on the waters. Because the earth is the Lord's, because it all belongs to him, then guess what? He's always going to have the final say. He's always going to have the final word. Why? Because it all belongs to him. We are only kidding ourselves when we think that we are in control of something. God always has the last word. Talking about all this, Psalm 24, 1 and 2, the earth is the Lord's, everything in it. It reminds me of the years when I was growing up at home. And you guys are learning a lot about my early years, I guess, today. And when I was growing up at home, you know, sometimes there would be conflict with my parents, especially conflict with my dad. And sometimes I would complain, you know, about how tough that I had it and everything. And, you know, well, I don't want to, I'd complain. I don't want to do that, and I shouldn't have to do that. And my best friend over here, he doesn't have to do that. Or he gets paid $3. That was a lot of money back in, 1968 or 9. He gets paid $3 for mowing his lawn, and I don't get paid anything. I've got it really rough. And then he would play the parental trump card. You know, parents, you know the parental trump card. You can say it with me. As long as you live under my roof, right, you're going to do what I say. That's the great parental. That's like the atom bomb of parenting, you know. Break glass in case of emergency. Break glass and drop the bomb. As long as you live under my roof, you're going to do what I say. Well, you can't argue with that. My best little buddy, 12-year-old friend's not going to take me in, and I don't want to live out on the street. So, well, okay. That's the trump card, isn't it? Think about God, right? Here we are, us little smarty pants people, infinitesimally small, shaking our hand at God, telling God this is what I'm going to do, telling God this is how awesome I am. And I can imagine God saying, whoa, back up the bus. I got a news flash for you. The earth is mine. I've made everything on it. And as long as you live on my planet, you're going to play by my rules. Oh, it's kind of a game changer. Whatever plans we make, we only think we are in control because everything that we do is always subject to the almighty purpose and power of God. Back in Acts chapter 2, Peter preaches this amazing sermon, and he's talking about Jesus in verse 23 and 24. And he said, this man, that is Jesus, he was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. And you, with the help of wicked men, you put him to death by nailing him on a cross. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. In other words, you crucified Jesus. You thought you were in control. You thought that was the final word. We'll show that guy something. He thinks he's a son of God. We're going to nail him to a cross. But guess what? God was in control. And he raised Jesus from the dead. God's in control. And the plans of men are always subservient to the purpose of God. So guess what? If you know what's good for you, you better seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. He's in control. Now, I'm going to wrap all this up in a couple of minutes. I want to go back in time for just a moment. In your mind, we don't have a literal time machine, but in your mind, just go back in time for a moment. And as we've been talking about Obadiah, and so try to remember the last time that God gave you a wake-up call. Now, I confess it's a trick question because I've been giving you a wake-up call for 20 minutes, right? So, when was the last time God tried to give you a wake-up call? Hey, listen, I'm talking to you. Listen to me. Wake up. Listen again to verse 15. The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. Do you believe that? Do you believe the day of the Lord's coming? Do you believe someday we will be held accountable for everything that we've done? If you believe that, then I have two words, and you've heard them already this morning. Wake up. Wake up. It's time, isn't it? It's time to wake up and turn to God. This morning, maybe God's gotten your attention in some capacity. Maybe one of these 4 warnings has resonated with you. Wow, having a right relationship with God, that's what matters, not popularity. Wow, I'd better not be proud because I'm definitely not the center of the universe. Maybe something has resonated with you this morning. Then wake up and turn to God. Or maybe you're walking with God. Well, wake up and do a little bit better. Ask him to help you and give you strength and forgive you and up your game just a little bit more, because it's so important, isn't it? So important. It's decision time this morning. Come on out, guys, as we prepare for our last song here of the worship this morning. And here's the thing. If we know what's good for us, we will seek to please him, won't we? That's just that simple. I think back on those days, and it was always true, If you know what's good for you, you better do that. Why? Because if you don't, the consequences, they're right here. Dad used to say, which one do you, he never did hit us, but jokingly he would say, which one do you want, crippled for life or sudden death? So I'm just saying, if you know what's good for you, there is a God who loves you and cares for you and has a plan for you. There is a God who loves you so much that he gave his only son, Jesus, right, to die for you. Jesus died for you. The Son of God gave his sinless life for every one of us. And the reason he did that is because God has a better plan. He loves us immensely. He has a better plan. He has a better offer. He has a better life for us than this world can ever give us. Ever. But we have to heed warning. We have to wake up and follow him. Maybe this morning it's your day, your time. Maybe something has moved you, touched you, spoken to you. Please come. Come. You have everything to gain, nothing to lose, right? Nothing to lose. take that step and draw closer to Him. We love you. We are here for you. We will be praying for you. We will welcome you to that next step. So let me encourage you. Let's stand together, and we're going to sing our decision song. You come this morning and draw closer to the Lord.